right, hello everybody, and welcome to this virtual Candlelight Vigil. We are so excited to be here this evening. We are Reimagine, a nonprofit organization aimed at helping diverse communities face loss and mortality to create a more compassionate world. I'm your introducer this evening. I may fall short of a host, but my name is Brad Wolf, and I'm the executive director of Reimagine. And I'm just so grateful to be with you, to slow down, to take a breath, to hold space for loss, grief, collectively and individually. There's just so much uh, upon us that we already have to face on our own accord, and then we double dip with everything that we're facing as a collective, and we feel it's so important to carve out spaces like this that are accessible and free, where people can gather in community with open minds and open hearts to be with what is, and to also hold in our hearts love in the face of all of that. And for those of us that are feeling maybe a little less of that this evening, pour some toward one another. So that's what we're doing. And we're going to be lighting candles in a minute. So now is a great time to grab a candle if you don't already have one, and something to light it with. And if you don't have one handy, no pressure. You'll be lit aglow amongst the wonderful folks that have joined with you. So yes, our mission is to help people of all backgrounds face loss, adversity, and mortality. And we believe that if we do that together, we can create actually a more compassionate world, thinking about how we actually respond to what comes towards us, to what we have to endure in our lives. We have an opportunity to be conscious about those choices. And that's why we're here, to think about not just loss, injustice, pain, loneliness, and suffering, but the other side of those, the full spectrum of humanity, the love, the equality that's possible through moving forward from injustice to fight for something right, to move through pain toward growth, from loneliness to a sense of community, and from suffering ultimately toward a world of service. So here we are, and I want to bring in my colleague now, Andy Engel, who is the incredible producer of this experience. And he's going to share what kind of space we have here this evening and what kind of space this is not. So you can just make sure that we're all aligned in our values at a very high level, and that you're in the right place.
Thanks, Brad. So welcome, everyone. This is a collective space to grieve. It's a space that cultivates compassion for others and for ourselves. Most of us have arrived here with some kind of pain in our hearts, and our hope is to help people of all backgrounds create a more compassionate world together. It's a space for bravery. It takes courage to show up for others, especially folks who we don't know. And it takes courage to lament and to grieve in public. With all that's going on around the world, in our country, now more than ever, people need to access these spaces where they can express themselves. Let's choose to respect and welcome everyone who is gathered here today, regardless of religion, nationality, belief system, or ethnicity. And finally, this space is not perfect. We might fumble, we might falter, we might offend, but we ask for your grace. What kind of space this is not? It's not about blaming. It's not about imposing beliefs on others. It's not about providing solutions or fixing things. Another thing I want to emphasize is that although this is not a political space, it is a space to cultivate social justice. Our colleague Mazen Jamal has offered this definition of justice. Quote, "It's an environment of integrity and wholeness achieved through healing and transformation. When justice is present, we can trust that our safety and our well-being are valued in a community or a society." This is our aspiration for tonight.
Thank you so much, Andy. So if this does feel like the right place for you, and we know in our hearts that it does, y- you are here with us for the next 90 minutes or so to participate in this really unique experience. We've been hosting these every month since the beginning of the pandemic. Our organization started before the pandemic, a couple of years prior, and once the pandemic happened, we felt it was so important to be able to, instead of hosting the in-person experiences that were accessible in so many different types of communities, to move online. And we've just been blown away to bear witness to the human experiences that everyone's bringing to these spaces, and the privilege it is to be with others in a space like this, and also um, uh, at the incredible compassion and love that's present. So um, no pressure here this evening, but we're launching into it. So what are we going to do? All right, so we're going to begin in 1 second with the candle lighting, and I'm going to invite some colleagues to help us in that candle lighting ceremony. Then we're going to move into our sacred conversation this evening. So excited, later we'll introduce Kai and James. Our honors ceremony is going to be led by the incredible musicians that kicked off this event. Charles Jarrett Cherner and Sarah Elizabeth Charles, who are going to be gracing us, and we'll introduce them soon too. And then we'll invite them back for the candle extinguishing, and then ultimately we're going to share a couple remarks and close it out together. And that's the gist. And so throughout the time, all we ask is that you stay present with us. And if you might, just to kick off this experience, the chat is going to be an important component, especially when we get to the honor ceremony. That's when we're going to have the opportunity to share the names of the people that we want to hold in our hearts and we want to bring forward into this space, if you so choose. But for now, why don't you just share, to get that chat warmed up, maybe an emotion that you're carrying with you into this space. From your day, like what are you feeling as you just entered the space today? Maybe what you were feeling, and maybe what you're feeling now, if you so choose. But looking forward to seeing some of your expressions in the chat. And if you have any questions along the way, you're welcome to use that as well, and our colleagues can help address those. Okay, so now it is my privilege to turn toward our candle lighting blessing, and I'm going to pull out a match. I invite everyone to do the same, or however you might light a candle. Oh, turns out I only have one match in the holster here, so that's always a dangerous proposition. Here we go. So now, wherever you are in the world, feel free to read this aloud with me. We might not be able to hear your voices, but we can feel them. I'm going to start and read it one time, and then I will turn it over to my colleagues, Nicole and Andy, to each read this as well. By lighting our candles, we mourn division.
Visions, terrorism.
Oh, and I appreciate it. I wonder, oh, perfect. Just to say, somehow I believe we're all, maybe we don't have the opportunity to, we have the opportunity to unmute and mute ourselves. If we don't mind staying muted until the end, when we're going to have an opportunity to all participate collectively and have our voices heard as a collective at the end of the session. But I do really appreciate whoever that was reading aloud. That is perfect, and we invite you to keep doing that. So thank you so much. All right. So by lighting our candles, we mourn division, terrorism, murder, war, trauma, hatred, and all that is disconnected from love. We honor our personal dead, the dead across the world, and all of us still here together.
By lighting our candles, we mourn division, terrorism, murder, war, trauma, hatred, and all that is disconnected from love. We honor our personal dead, the dead across the world, and all of us still here together.
By lighting our candles, we mourn division, terrorism, murder, war, trauma, hatred, and all that is disconnected from love. We honor our personal dead, the dead across the world, and all of us still here together.
So now I'm going to switch it to gallery mode for a second. And thank you so much for reading that. If you don't mind, this is a beautiful opportunity for us to now hold our lit candles up to one another. If you're willing to share your sweet face and screen here. And why don't we just pick one person, we like to do this, that you don't know, one little square of humanity out there, and fix your eyes on that square and that candle and that person's face, and just share in your heart 30 seconds of kindness and love and a wish of hope for that person, that stranger who you do not know. All right, thank you so much, everybody. Certainly for me, the nicest 30 seconds of my entire day. And the question we ask is, what if everyone could take that pause before some wound that we create to others and just share some kindness with someone else? We would have a very blissful, peaceful world here. And so that's what we hope to co-create together for this 90 minutes. Thank you for participating. Now it is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce James Cruz, the author of 6 prize-winning collections of poetry. Last spring, James co-led a Mother's Day gathering at Reimagine with his fellow poet, Rosemary Traumer. His newest publication, which speaks so much to the work that we're about here at Reimagine, is Turning Toward Grief, Reflections on Life, Loss, and Appreciation. He is also the editor of several best-selling poetry anthologies, including How to Love the World, which has been featured on NPR's Morning Edition and in the Boston Globe, the New York Times, the Washington Post. His poems have appeared in the New York Times Magazine, the New Republic, and the Christian Century. James is the winner of the New England Book Award for Poetry and curates a free poetry newsletter, which we recommend, called The Weekly Pause. He lives with his husband in Vermont. Thank you so much for being here, James. I also want to introduce Kai Coggin, the inaugural Poet Laureate of Hot Springs, Arkansas. Thank you to Hot Springs for doing the right thing. Last year, she received an Academy of American Poets Laureate Fellowship. She is the author of 5 collections, most recently, Mother of Other Kingdoms. Kai is a certified master naturalist, a K-12 teaching artist in poetry. Thank you so much for your service to our youth, and host of the longest running consecutive weekly open mic series in the entire country, Wednesday Night Poetry. We need more of it. Kai was awarded the 2023 Don Monroe Leadership in the Arts Award for Visionary Service and the 2021 Governor's Arts Award for Arts and Education. 10 of Kai's poems, check this, are going to the moon with the Lunar Codex Project. And on Earth, they have appeared in many respected poetry journals. She lives with her wife in a peaceful valley where they tend to wild ones and sweetly to each other. Thank you, Kai, for being here. Thank you, James. And before we get going here, I would just like to ask everybody who's part of this conversation, since we did just light candles, if you might share, if you feel willing and desirous, what or if or who your candle is might be in honor of this evening. We'll start with James.
I light my candle in memory of my mother, my father, and my brother.
I light my candle for a version of myself that has changed, a version of myself that I am letting go.
Thank you so much. We honor your losses here. Thanks for modeling your vulnerability, and um, take it away to you two. Thank you so much for all the work you bring to the world and that you're going to bring to us this evening.
Well, thank you so much, Brad, Andy, everyone here, Jarrett and Sarah, for the beautiful music that's to come. And thanks to Kai for agreeing to be in conversation with me tonight. I just feel better looking at her tonight and knowing that we're all sharing this sacred space together. So, Kai, would you like to start us off with a poem?
Sure. I'd like to start off by also echoing my gratitude for this space, for all of you that are here tonight with your candlelit hearts that are open to holding each other. I think it's so important that we hold each other in whatever capacity that we can during this time. And James, when you asked me to join you months ago, I didn't know that I would be deep in this season of my own grief. And so I am learning to really just trust the seeds that I've planted along the way and that they will bloom in the right time. So lately, I've been crying a lot. And this poem is just called Let Yourself Go. And it's been giving me permission to cry. Let yourself go. Come into your softest space, your safest place, and just let yourself go. Cry, wail, scream, cry some more. Let yourself crumple into a pile of feelings on the floor. Curl up on the corner of your couch or your bed. You are not the only one who's hanging by a thread. Warm yourself by the fire of your own releasing cells. You don't have to hold it in anymore. No one expects you to be okay. Enter the cocoon of your own slow transformation. In here, you can cry. In here, you are safe. Listen to the river outside as it flows from place to place. The only thing that stays the same is change, is the unceasing movement, is the rain falling outside, washing everything clean, is the rough winter breeze stripping away the leaves of trees. Still, the roots below carry the blooms, begging to be born. So, darling, let yourself go. Let it all fall away. Release all those years of survival and fall into the ache until it becomes an open field instead of a cage, until your chest becomes a window again, your mouth a blank page.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. I love so many of those images, but especially that idea of the true tree roots carrying the buds and that are begging to be born. I just think that is so wonderful and so descriptive of what it feels like for me to be in the midst of that grief and transition. And I thought it was interesting that you, as a gardener, were saying that you had to trust the seeds that you had planted inside of yourself, right? That they were gonna eventually bloom and sprout again. But I think when you're in that sort of rough spot where you have to just let yourself go, as your poem says, and you have to let yourself ache, it's hard to trust that we will be held, or that we are being held even right now in the midst of that. I know at least that is true for me. And I'm lucky to be in the midst of people who are not afraid to show emotion or cry, but it feels like, I once called it losing it, during a poetry reading. And someone, of course, corrected me and she said, well, what if you're not losing it? You're actually finding it again and finding it again and finding it again. And I really like that correction of language.
A beautiful correction of language. Um, I've felt internally in a way that hasn't been whole for most of my life. I know that this is a safe space, but I've been leaning into healing from complex post traumatic stress disorder. And I just really found the language to be able to express what I've been going through for most of my life since childhood. And so I'm at this point now where my nervous system and my body are starting to feel safe and relaxing. And so when I'm by myself in this little soft room, tears just flow, and sometimes I feel like they'll never stop flowing, and sometimes I get scared, like, where is all of this grief coming from? And that grief sometimes mirrors fear, sometimes it mirrors, worry, frustration, and you don't know where it's supposed to land, or where the root of that is. But then I just allowed myself gave myself that permission to feel all that pain wherever it has come from. It's been living in my body, and now it's finally safe to just water whatever chapter of my life will be next. So whatever seeds are still deep down in there, these tears are watering all of that. And so giving myself that space and that comfort and that safety to cry and hold myself and to gather, you know, all those different versions of me that were children, that were young adults, that were teenagers, queer kids, and bring them close to myself and all of us to cry together. It's been really healing for me. And so as a gardener, I do lean into the seasons, and so I'm just kind of calling this my season of grief. And, there's so much in the world, obviously, for all of us to grieve. But the inner world, the outer world, and the world that we don't talk about, even, these are all points of grief, and everyone is carrying something. And that reminds me so much of your poem that you just recently shared about how I wish we had like a signifier, or like
Mhm.
I'm grieving or something on your forehead, or,
Yeah.
and it just rang so true to me because I still go out into the world and I'm expected to be, Kai, perform and
Mhm.
be this radiant firework of a person, when inside I've been in so much pain, and I feel like I've been in this cocoon for a while. And a good friend of mine, Cece Mercer, gave me this image of being in this cocoon, and I keep ripping myself out of that cocoon.
Mm.
My wings aren't ready yet. I'm still
Yeah.
I'm still the goo, and it's okay
Mhm.
to be the goo that is in the midst of this transforming. And so a lot of these images have been just living in my body, and they all came out in that little poem last week when Andy
Mm.
reached out and said, "Do you have something to share? Can you make us a little video?" And so I wrote that poem and
Wow.
recorded it that day. And I know that you have that ability to find these mundane images and, a baguette or the pollen on Brad's overalls, and and to
Mhm.
find a poem there. And that's what I love so much and admire so much about your work.
Thank you. Well, maybe I'll go ahead and read that poem again. I know some people may have heard it, but just to share it and maybe share a little bit about the story of that poem. Because we did used to wear black bands on our arms, or, other signifiers of grief, but we don't have that as much now. And I think that where so many of us carrying more grief than ever. And as we were saying earlier in the program, I think Andy said something about this, that, we have our own personal grief, but we also have these layers of outside grief and collective grief that are kind of pressing down on us. And I sometimes think that the collective grief is what can force the personal grief more to the surface, or, and all kinds of grief. I want to honor the fact that we may have lost loved ones, all of us, but we may also be losing jobs. We may be losing relationships in a different way. So, the grief that we will be speaking to tonight, I think speaks to all those different kinds of losses and transitions. So, this poem is called Made Visible. Some days I wish our pain was visible, that our grief gave off a slight glimmer from the center of the chest, so that as we walked down the street, shifting a bag of olive oil and bread from one hand to the other, every passerby might see a glow lifting off of us like moonlight on the surface of broken water, and know to soften their eyes and whisper, hello. So I wrote that. I It was the year after my mother had died, and my mother was quite young. She was only 64 years old, and I had taken care of her literally my whole life. She was dealing with mental illness and then physical disability the latter part of her life. And even though we lived in different parts of the country, I was always going back to see her and doing things, and we talked, almost every day. And so the loss was not just the loss of a loved one, but it was also the loss of purpose and meaning, because I realized how much meaning I had from the caregiving and the caretaking, something that I know a lot of other folks can probably relate to. But I decided to go away, not realizing that I was going away during Mother's Day. I just randomly planned this trip. Probably my body knew.
Randomly.
Exactly, yeah. My body knew that it was Mother's Day and I was going to need some sort of cocoon, to borrow your language, Kai. And so I went up to Quebec City in Canada, which is about a 7 or 8 hour drive from us in Vermont. And, it feels like entering another world. And so you're held in this different place. People are speaking another language. And I was just walking around with my olive oil and my bread thinking, no one has any idea who I am or what I'm feeling. And the magnitude of what we feel sometimes just seems so, out of step or not in keeping with, like you said, the face or the mask that we're expected to present to the rest of the world, especially if we have a family or, other people are expecting us to work or perform in a certain way. So I just got to thinking, gosh, I really wish our pain was visible in some way. And there's also this great novel that I recommend, really interesting, sort of sci-fi-ish, by Kevin Brockmeyer, and it's called The Illuminations. And the whole premise of the book is that you can go around and see where other people are feeling pain.
Wow.
So if it's a broken heart, their heart is glowing. If it's, dermatitis somewhere on their body that's flared up, you can kind of see that pulsing through the clothing. And it's just, I wish in some ways we had that we
That
could see.
you describe it so beautifully, and this just the softness of your language paired with the softness and gentleness of your voice, it just always is such a vibration of healing and gentleness, the moonlight, just so beautiful. And it would be so much easier if we could all see everything that we were carrying, because everyone everywhere is carrying. We're all carrying something. And I love that we didn't say who we were looking at when we held our candles to someone, but that was such a beautiful way to connect with a stranger without saying that, and without saying, hey, I'm thinking about you right now. But what if every stranger that we approached or every person that we stood next to in the grocery store, we just kind of in our hearts sent them energy, sent them healing, sent them light, because it's dark all around. It's dark any way you slice it, whatever religion, political affiliation, race, creed, gender, it's dark. It's a dark, dark time. So if we held a candle for each person and offered it, in our minds, it'd be such a different experience to be a human right now on this planet. So thank
Yeah.
you for just leading with that poem. And
Mm.
maybe if just our eyes or our mouths or our hair, just our faces, whatever our faces were, was the signifier, just the knowing that everyone is carrying something.
Yeah.
Human skin, our human bodies, God.
Right. Yeah. That's enough. It's enough
I
to
know,
just
isn't it?
be carrying a body in
Yeah.
this world, let alone the emotional pain and other things that go along with it. I was also thinking just now about that final image of your poem, Kai, and it was something about the mouth as a blank page. And I think that that's, we may not be ready always to receive or hear that message, but I know eventually in my own grief journeys, multiple, um, that has been the outcome. That, what I have realized is that incubation, that chrysalis period, often led to possibilities on the other side that I wasn't aware of, that I had no idea were, percolating and kind of getting ready to blossom and sprout wings. So I think that's where some of the trust that we're talking about comes in, that we, all of us, especially those of us who might really be in fresh grief or really be in that transitional period, that we can trust there is a becoming happening. And the reason that I wanted to call my new book Turning Toward Grief is because, we don't invite grief, but it shows up at the door. And I know that I would rather turn away from it, most times. But I have also discovered that if I turn toward it and not invite it exactly, but just acknowledge, like, you're here. So what can I learn from you? What can I trust in terms of the work that you're going to do in me? And how are you going to touch my life and the other people around me? So I think that it's something that it sounds like we're both kind of doing our best to hold the grief and turn toward that, even though, those layers of darkness are pressing in from outside as well.
I love that you're using that sort of passive, like turning toward. And in my poem, it's like let yourself go. Just allow it to move through you. Because for a few weeks, I was really pushing it away and doing what I have done most of my life, which is stuff it down or turn to some way that was not healthy to numb that grief or numb that pain. And so all of these things are becoming more clear, and my awareness and observation through this like healing journey that I've been on have allowed me to feel compassion toward myself and to pause and to try to understand why that grief is coming up. And for a few weeks it was stuck right here on my chest and in my throat, and I felt like, as a poet, for us and as a space holder, being able to communicate and perform and write and create is, I mean, that's my lifeblood. And so for a while, I was not able to connect to that higher source within me that allows me to find that creative, flow or those poems. I've been journaling a lot to process, but the poems were just, I couldn't get there. I couldn't get there because there was just so much I was moving to. And what you just said kind of reminded me of a poem that I just wrote a few weeks ago. Um, that talks about that. Is it okay if I share
Yeah,
that?
it's
I need to come to poems to find the story in the silence. This humble alliance I have with the way the pen can still pull at the strings of my heart. Those strings are not disconnected. I am not disconnected. I am moving through the fog of grief to the truth of a sun finally rising in my heart that feels safe and golden. I come to poems to bow my humble body at the feet of my own voice, to listen.
mm, the bow at the feet of my own voice. Wow, that is so beautiful.
When Brad asked us at the beginning how we're feeling, I stopped and I paused, and just sharing this space with you all, it invoked a sense of the sacred. This is a sacred space. And so I put reverence for my tears and realizing that these tears that have been falling, this grief that I've been feeling, there's a holiness to it. There's a holiness to the wholeness that I'm becoming, to the whole person that I'm becoming. And so I really appreciate the chance to even communicate these words and to have these emotions of mine that are so fresh be held in such a reverent way by you and by all of you out there with your candle hearts.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. What would you say has been nourishing you during this time?
You know, it's the same thing that nourishes you.
Yeah.
Nature,
Mhm.
natural world, trees, seeds, birds, bugs, all of those things, bees, you know, rivers.
Mhm.
Seasons change, all of that, everything that we both lean on so much. This picture of me hugging a giant sequoia, having felt that in my body has been a place that I go when I feel overwhelmed. Like I hugged a 3,000-year-old giant tree,
Mm.
hugged me back, and like so the natural world continues to be a grounding place and a place that I can always remember that I am a part of.
Mhm.
Just like Mary Oliver says in Wild Geese, no matter who you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, high and exciting, no, harsh and exciting, announcing your place in the family of things.
Mm.
We're always
Yeah.
in there. We're all a part of it. So even in our grief, we're never alone in that grief. Um,
Mhm. Yeah, and I love that you're invoking Mary Oliver too, because I was just talking with another poet about that very same poem, Wild Geese, and she was using the same line from that poem. You only have to love what the soft animal of your body loves. And I was doing a writing exercise with a group, like, what does the soft animal of your body crave right now? What does it want to love? What does it love? Because I think I find that that poem begins in gentleness and self-compassion, and then it, ends up in connection and greater service to the world. And it does seem like that's an arc of what we're talking about here is the agreement to feel what we feel, to listen to ourselves and the soft animal of our body, and then allow that to open us up to others. But I think that we can't move too quickly away from that phase of listening to what our body, mind, heart, spirit wants and needs. Because in my experience, if we do that too soon, then it's like you were saying, cutting that chrysalis open too early, and those wings don't have a chance to form. And so I find that writing, and I do a lot of journaling every day. Really, my practice is journaling. And sometimes a poem pops out and sometimes an essay pops out, so it's in the midst of journaling and trying to put um, language to the pain, the joy, the delight, the grief that other things actually end up coming. And it's really how I know, I grew up as someone who also pushed down a lot and whose anxiety just covered up so much. And so it is by getting back into my body and writing with my body that I come into contact with what I'm feeling and whatever truth really wants to be spoken. That's how I get in touch with it. So you ended your last piece on listening, so I'll read a piece about listening. And this was written in part because I feel that we're at a place in our culture, in our world, really, where we just don't listen to one another enough. And I mean that in a radical, really deep way. Like listening without trying to react, without giving an opinion, just listening, holding space, taking that 30 seconds like we did in the beginning of this program, and just, beaming some love or acceptance or embrace to someone else. And the other piece of it is, when I think you're in the midst of grief, fresh grief, you realize that a lot of people want to try to fix that for you, and that's a beautiful thing because it means you're surrounded by loving and caring people. But what I was most nourished by were the people who just listened, or like, I remember the day I got the news that my mother had died, my husband just sat on the couch next to me and said, I don't even half know what to say right now. And that was the most comforting thing that he could have said, honestly, just acknowledging that the unsayable, the mysterious had entered the room with us. So, this is how to listen. Listening is a form of worship, but you don't have to kneel on the floor with folded hands or mouth the perfect prayer. Just open the door of yourself to another. Become the space they step through to show you who they are. This is holiness. Two people seated together on the pew of a park bench at the altar of a kitchen table. Even if no one says a word for a while, receive the silence until it is like a language only the two of you can speak. And I want to say, when I wrote that poem, I still remember this was a morning, probably a year or two ago. And I just thought, oh, this is too simple. This is too simple, So if any of you are writers out there, you're journaling or something like, oh, this is so cliche. This is too simple. We are our own worst critics. And sometimes the simplest things say the most.
I want you to know that I many times haven't been able to find words to express the things that I've been going through over these last few months. And I will get on Facebook and right away, there you are. There's your poem of the day, something that you're sharing, your weekly, you're just always right there, exactly with whatever feeling I'm going through, whatever words that I need, whatever assurance or image or something that reaffirms my experience. And so I just want to say on behalf of all of the fans that you have and the followers and the people that read and love your work, nothing that you put out there is simple. It is in touch with the human experience and the vibration of a pure, open heart. Because your work is in touch with the collective, with the greater. It speaks to the greater audience, just as Mary Oliver did. People have said those things about her work, but people are still reading Mary Oliver, and we're talking about her tonight. People, poets that can reach the world. Those are the poets that matter to me, that can reach everybody. And I thank you for the work that you put out into the world.
Well, thank you. The feeling is very mutual. I feel the same about your work. And, I feel that your work reminds us that we have a heart and that it aches and that it needs gentleness sometimes and needs to feel anger sometimes. I feel like the whole range of emotions gets expressed through your work, and I feel in the poems that you've been sharing that are more recent that you are in this transitional period, and that the work changes along with us, and the poems change with us too.
I've been wearing, rage goggles for quite a while. Political rage goggles, and those lenses have really been framing a lot of my work, righteous rage. And those lenses are different now. And when you're experiencing grief or loss or transformation or even healing, um, it colors everything. And love colors everything. And so yeah, and we just keep moving through it, and trusting that those words will come when they come, and even if they don't, it's okay. As poets, we sometimes go through, fallow periods, but it's not fallow. You're inhaling life, you're experiencing life. And I always tell communities, especially communities of writers, you can't always exhale. You can't always be producing, producing, producing. You also have to inhale and live and see and observe and feel and process. And so, yeah, let's just keep breathing together. And when one of us is quiet, the other one will be the voice that we need to hear, which is how I feel about you, brother.
Thank you so much, sister. Appreciate that.
What
And I
a
love,
what a conversation. Is that James? Am I on the right? Am I timing this correctly?
I believe so. Yeah.
Because that was just the bookends of your kindness towards one another and reflections towards one another's poetry, I think do speak for all of us when we hear your words and your abilities to metabolize your lived experiences into something that we can all feel and know is true uh, in a deeper way than we might be able to articulate ourselves. And that's what gives poetry, I think, so much power. It connects to something that we can know in our hearts, like with that Mary Oliver poem. It's like, oh, so it's like, you know, it's forever, and you just know it. Just like the words you're both sharing. So thank you so much. I do have a couple questions for both of you that came up for me just before we turn over to the honor ceremony. James, you shared this idea. It was a passing comment you made about writing with your whole body. And I'm just wondering, what does it mean to put your whole body into something?
Well, it's hard, first of all, but it also becomes more familiar, I think, when you practice it. Um, I've kind of taught mindfulness and writing over the years, but I've come to feel like mindfulness doesn't really capture the experience. It's more like bodyfulness, but that's kind of an ugly word. But it's really just aliveness, it's, I think, opening the senses to what is around us. So oftentimes, if there's nothing kind of bubbling up that I want to write about, whether I'm journaling or working on a poem or something like that, then I just open my senses. What am I seeing? I try to name 3 physical things in the world around me. And that kind of hones my attention because I tend to be a more anxious person. So my brain is all over the place. And I need like some resting places in my physical environment. So oftentimes that is how I begin. And that usually leads me somewhere. And I like to write by hand too. I mean, I actually have like just old spiral bound notebooks and write by pen so that I'm actually using my body. And I write something over and over and over again, um, oftentimes until I memorize it, at least in that moment. And I like to let the writing live inside my body. Usually I end up forgetting it. I wish I could remember it forever, but the poem does its work through me, and then it's born, and then it's released, And so that's, I guess, a little nutshell of whole body writing.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. It reminds me, honestly, I at one point designed a writing exercise for young people, and it was left hand meet right hand or right hand meet left hand, and
I
you'd
like
have to
that.
write with your non-dominant hand something, and just the mindful, it kind of snaps you into some mindfulness because it's so hard. You have to pay so much attention, and all of a sudden, every pen stroke you can feel it in a different way, and that reminded me a little bit of what you're sharing. But I like the way of just bringing in all the senses into your experience, because there's so much around us at any one moment that we may not that there it's ripe to pay attention to.
Mhm.
And for both of you then, Kai, maybe beginning with you, I'm curious, we talked about this idea, well, both of you, I mean, embody this idea of kind of channeling your experiences in through poetry. I'm wondering if this, when I say this word channeling or transmuting or metabolizing, does that resonate with you in terms of what happens to the kind of your relationship to the pain that you maybe when you begin, does your relationship to it change through your process? And have you found do you believe there are other forms, or how wide is the spectrum of forms where we might channel our pain, poetry being one of them, but how vast do you think the opportunity is for the kind of work you're doing, but in other contexts?
That was a long question, Brad.
That was 3 questions, I guess.
I like the word transmuting, and I use that a lot because it's sort of it moves it from one form to another. So I see it as sort of moving it from the body to the spirit, whatever that might mean for you. And so with me, yes, writing does usually live in my body. Phrases and images and feelings and emotions will sort of marinate inside me, and then they'll come out as little glimpses and glimmers and phrases. But when the poem is ready, it comes out usually all at once, just like, these poems that I both read, the ones that I read tonight, they just pour out. And so that's when I feel like it's ready to be transmuted, or it's channeled through me. And then when it goes to another level, for me, is when it's read out loud. And when a poet creates something, or any artist, these beautiful musicians who are going to shine in a bit, when we create something, it's ours when we create it, but when we share it, it's no longer ours. And so it goes into this sort of collective creative force, this creative life force that the planet holds, and when you create something from a place that is not rooted in ego, then you can sort of tap into that greater creative force. And so when it's shared, then that poem is no longer mine, because someone else's experience is tied to those words now. And so it becomes their poem. Just like whenever I read James's poetry, I'm like, that's exactly what I needed to hear right at this moment. So that poem's not just his anymore, it's mine too. And that's the beauty of art. And that's why art is such a necessary thing on this planet during this time. I'm reminded of that quote, will there be singing during what is the quote, James? Do you know what I'm talking about? Yes, there'll be singing, or I don't.
Yeah, will there be singing in the dark times? Yes, there will be singing about dark times.
Yeah, and that's what we do. We hold that candle. We're the true legislators of history. And I brought a 3-page political poem, to read, and I didn't get a chance, but we have these poems in us, and we carry all those different feelings. And when we find space or audiences, or even a friend, or even a bird or bug to read or share the poem with, it takes on another life. So that's the magic that I keep coming back to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and for me, Brad, I'll just kind of go with your word channeling. I really love that word, actually. And it might sound a little woo-woo to some people. That's okay with me. But it does feel like channeling sometimes when I'm sitting down and like something just wants to be born through me. And I'm sure that other artists, other makers feel the same way. And I think the expression of that is open completely for interpretation to any form. I mean, you can put yourself and love into baking something, growing something, plants. It's just endless, really. And so that's how it works for me. I allow something to pass through me, and just as Kai was saying, then it's no longer mine. But if I'm writing about something that is particularly painful or confusing, or related to grief, mortality, I never feel worse after I write it down. And I try to remind myself that when I feel some resistance to actually writing through some pain or difficulty, I never feel worse. I might still feel confused. I might still feel in grief, but I usually feel a little lighter and a little better. And I definitely have more perspective, because I think there's something about creating a physical thing of a thought or a feeling or an experience, getting it out of your body and onto a page or a canvas or into notes in the air, that allows us some separation so that we don't feel controlled by it anymore, so that we can almost feel companioned by it instead of burdened.
Thank you so much, James and Kai. Everyone out there, please share some gratitude in the chat for something that your heart's feeling around what James and Kai are sharing with us and have shared in this really beautiful human conversation, this poetic conversation about grief and love and life, loss, all the appreciation and turning towards. Thank you so much for being here. We'll turn back to you in just a bit. for the closing ceremony. Now it's the time for all of us as a community to show up for each other, and for those that we want to honor today. And to lead us into the honor ceremony, I would love to introduce you to two very special musicians. Sarah Elizabeth Charles is a vocalist and a composer based in New York City. With her band Scope, she has recorded 5 critically acclaimed studio albums under her own name, most recently Dawn, which was inspired by her journey through miscarriage, birth, and motherhood. In addition to her performances, Sarah is also an active educator. She is a lead teaching artist with Carnegie Hall at Sing Sing Correctional Facility and co-teaches courses at the New York School. In 2019, she was one of 5 recipients of the Yale School of Music's Distinguished Teaching Artist Award. We're so grateful to have Sarah Elizabeth Charles here with us, and joining her is the incredible Jarret Cherner, a Brooklyn-based pianist, composer, and band leader. He debuted on his own Bald Hill music label with a compelling trio release, Burgeoning, which earned recognition from the ASCAP Young Jazz Composer Awards. He released 2 critically acclaimed albums with the jazz quintet Sketches. And then Jarret united with Sarah for their 2020 release, Tone, an album featuring 8 original songs. He has toured throughout the US, as well as South America, Canada, Mexico, and Europe. A passionate educator as well, he has worked as a teaching artist with Carnegie Hall, has taught at Franklin and Marshall College, and maintains a private studio. Jarret, we're grateful to have you here, both of you. We just talked about poetry and channeling and transmuting and music. The music of the notes and the music of our hearts is so powerful as well. And so we welcome you to our humble space here. Lead us in the honor ceremony.
Awesome. Thanks for having us all. It's a pleasure to be here and hear all these beautiful words.
Yeah, Kai and James, thank you for sharing your
Get
work.
into position here.
And yeah, Jarrett's going to get into position. We were so inspired, and so we have 2 young children at home, and we're very tired these days. And hearing you sharing both your work and your reflections and your inspiration was just so beautiful and like so soothing at the end of this like very long day. All of the days feel very long and filled with so much for us. I think that we feel moved to play pretty quickly for you all, and then maybe share a bit more. And this first song that we wanted to offer up is inspired actually by a poem by Robert Frost. The poem is called Nothing Gold Can Stay. You might be familiar with it, and it's beautiful. And at one of our songwriting sessions years ago, we read this poem and knew that thought we might want to adapt it. And I am usually the lyricist in our collaboration, but I was really flailing. It wasn't working, and it wasn't happening. And Jarret was like, let me take it in a room for a while. And he literally like went into a different room for a couple of hours and came back with this really, what I feel is like a really beautiful lyric that adapts this poem to song. And we call this song the poem is Nothing Gold Can Stay. The song is called Hanging On to Time. And it's really just about the fleeting nature of time that we all move through.
Hanging on to time, hanging on to time, living the days as years, Nature's greed is gold, her heart is due to hold. Early leaves of flower, but lonely so in our dawn goes down to day. Gold can't stay. Leaf subsides to leaf. I know time goes moving on. Eden sank to grief. I know time goes moving on. We must welcome change with each breath. Find peace, embrace what comes our way. Nothing gold can stay. Leaf subsides to leaf. I know time goes moving. Eden sank to grief. I know time goes moving on. We must welcome change with each breath. Find calm, embrace what comes our way. Embrace what comes our way. Embrace what comes our way. Nothing gold can stay. Embrace what comes our way. Nothing gold can stay. Embrace what comes our way. Nothing gold can stay. Embrace what comes our way. Nothing gold, nothing gold, nothing gold can stay.
Thank you for the love. We appreciate it so much. It's a beautiful poem. You should go read it. If you aren't familiar with it too. Yeah, and you know, it's interesting that you mentioned Mary Oliver as well this evening, because we have a piece called Praying on the album that we created together in 2020, and the piece is actually called Speak, and it's based on Mary Oliver's poem Praying, which is another beautiful piece. anyway, it's just, there's so much that you mentioned, and it's bringing up so much in my mind right now. But maybe I'll stop talking and see if Jarrett has anything to share, and then I'll share more.
Yes, I was going to share just on the grief topic. So many beautiful words and a lot of tributes in the chat, that I've been thinking a lot about my mom, who passed away 5 years ago. And I was thinking about, I don't really talk about her passing a lot. Sometimes I feel like there's not much to say, but there's a lot to say. She was my mom, and she was an amazing woman. And in many ways, is a normal passing, you know, nothing crazy, no big tragedy, except that she's my mom, and she was my mom, and she's no longer here. And there are many things I'm grateful for about her passing. She was able to die at home with her family around her, which was how she always said she wanted to go, which was a real blessing. But she didn't make it to 70, and I think we all feel she was robbed of a few decades. And there's nothing, I just wanted to share a little bit about this because it's so normal and it's just part of life. It also sort of, having a loved one pass just sort of opens you up to that truth that, you know, most of us, all of us, if we're lucky, get to experience in a strange way, as part of getting older and loving people and then letting them go. And one big point of sadness about her passing is that she didn't get to meet our 2 kids. She would have loved to be their grandma. But something I think about as I miss her is that a lot of her dedication to her kids, my 2 brothers and me, comes out through me in my dedication to my kids. So in my own way, that's how I like to celebrate her.
Thank you, Andy, for putting that in the chat. Yeah. I think about the lyric of the song that we just played, and I also think about something that Jarrett's dad said after his mom passed. I don't remember where this came from, so if somebody knows the origin, please, share it. But just the idea that there was a poem he found after she passed, and there was an idea embedded in it, which is essentially that, like, if we are fortunate enough to feel like a well of grief in our life, that means that we loved something so deeply, and like, how fortunate are we to have loved something or cared for something or held something so close, and that when we lose it, or it shifts or morphs or evolves in whatever way that causes us to feel grief, we feel so much pain and sadness, like that juxtaposition of the 2 feelings, and how the grief exists because the depth of love existed, and still does. The same year that we lost Jarrett's mom was the year that we experienced our first miscarriage. We've had 2 miscarriages before each of our sons were born. And we also lost my brother that same year. So it was like a really, 2020, was Andy, you were sharing with us a little bit about the history of this vigil and this space and this gathering. And, that year of so much isolation and loneliness for us also, and for so many people, like, held like this grief, that was like extremely acute, with these like very, very intense losses in our immediate families and family. And I truly feel that, like, through those losses, I don't know, the people that we have, like, are now, the family that we are, like, with our 2 boys, like, I feel like that very much was colored by those experiences, in a way that I feel like only, I don't know, like, brought us, I'm seeing an elevator. It's like another dimension of like like connection and understanding and gratitude, you know, because like the fleetingness of time, you know, like we were just playing about, like the inevitability of how fleeting time is, and the idea that, like, you know, Jarrett's mom, like Polly, was gold, you know, my brother Luke was gold, you know, and nothing that is like brilliant and beautiful in this world is gonna stick around. It all has its cycle and its time, that it will leave, at least in this form, the form that it like has once existed in. Yeah. So I guess in this moment I'm feeling a lot of gratitude for being able to share a bit about that. We didn't know what we were going to share tonight, but there is another song that that I actually wrote before my brother passed. He was, when he passed away, he had been sober for a year, and I wrote this because when he passed away, and before he passed away, he was really like embedding his life in this idea of like living with intention and loving people hard. That was something he would post about it a lot on Facebook. You mentioned like seeing things on Facebook. I would like, so his feed would pop up, and it was something about like just really like living life on purpose. And with his passing, this song, you know, has taken on a completely different meaning. But the song is called Out Loud. And we'd love to share it with you. And while we share it, feel free to listen, and also put in the chat, you know, the names of, continue to put in the chat, or put in the chat any new emotions or names or things that have come up throughout the course of this evening that you might be grieving. You're welcome to do that, or share in any way that you feel moved to. So yeah.
Let's play some more music.
Yeah. This is Out Loud. You can also sing along at the end if you want. There's a part.
She did not know she was able to break. She felt her moods would flow even with tide. She couldn't have known a mistake she would make to trust her mind. He did not know that he'd have to prove all his self-worth, or else he would lose. Now he is left rewriting the blues without a dime. As we move forward through this life, don't know how long we will survive, just trying to hold still to not disturb the rhyme. It's not about a win or lose, only what path you choose to choose. People that brace through time don't live life anew. It's not about a win or lose, only what path you choose to choose. People that grace through time. Don't live life undefined and yet so clear. Listen close so you can hear. If we wait, then time can slow right down. Be here and now, living life out And if you want, you can sing this next part with me. Out loud, out loud, out loud, out loud, out We can hear you.
Wow. There's so much that just happened. And the first of all, Jarrett and Sarah, that was just breathtaking in so many ways. The music, and also honestly, your words matched your musical abilities in so far as they were just really breathtaking. And Jarrett, I have to say, your share was so human for all of us that, you know, maybe not the whole world knows about this person, but it matters to us. And I think that's just excuse me. That's actually the brother of my friend who passed away 20 years ago, who's just calling me right now, which is really special. So that's weird. But and Sarah, I mean, this your story, and then how you translated that into song, or how, and then what that song means to you, but now, and what it means to all of us, I think is just amazing. And so I think I speak for all of us when I say that. And then everybody who was shared in the chat and as kind of collectively creating this moment together. Thank you so much. That was just really, really beautiful. I saw at the beginning of the evening a number of emotions of people's kind of emotional states, and seeing that vulnerability, then the honesty of your shares, and the love that's in your hearts that everyone's bringing together. I think we're all amplifying that, and you don't have to feel like you have to stop sharing names just because we stopped the music. You can keep sharing names, and even if you didn't share a name tonight, I think we can all agree that we can hold each of you in all of our hearts for being here, and back to that, looking at the squares, just remembering how this is this is kind of the culmination of all of our lives right now, and here we are together, honoring things that matter most. So thank you so much for showing up. Now we're going to close off the ceremony. I want to invite back all of our beautiful speakers, Sarah, Jarrett, Kai, and James. Let's read this 4 times, in fact. You can read along with the speakers, and at the end of the 4th time, I'll count down from 3, and collectively, if you feel inclined to join, we can all extinguish our candles as a community. But if you want to let your candle extinguish on its own accord, feel free. And if you don't have a candle to extinguish and you just want to take a breath, a collective breath with me, we can do that as a community as well. So I turn it over to you, the incredible Sarah.
By extinguishing our candles, we release light into our world to keep alive hope and the memories of those we honor today and tomorrow and for the rest of our lives.
By extinguishing our candles, we release light into our world to keep alive hope and the memories of those we honor today and tomorrow and for the rest of our lives.
By extinguishing our candles, we release light into our world to keep alive hope and the memories of those we honor today and tomorrow and for the rest of our lives.
By extinguishing our candles, we release light into our world to keep alive hope and the memories of those we honor today and tomorrow and for the rest of our lives.
Three, two, one.
Thanks, Andy, for unmuting yourself for the countdown. That was very helpful. Thanks, everybody, for participating and for sharing your hearts with us this evening. We have a couple announcements, and we're going to then wrap up together in just a couple minutes here. I do have something to share. A couple things. First, I guess I'll kick it off just to say, we talked just now about turning towards grief and turning towards what matters. At Reimagine, we have something very exciting that we've been working on for 3 years to combat what we see as a strange culture with respect to the hard parts of life and the way that they're talked about and processed. And if you turn, on social media and the news, there's no dearth of visibility into how our pain actually creates more and more suffering for one another. We're trying to think about it differently, and we've designed a space that is in its very early day and need your help trying it and giving us feedback and blazing a new trail for a different way we can share our stories in vulnerability, where we can give and get support with one another. We can simply hold space for one another and connect with one another. So if you want to join together and keep this conversation going and share how your journey is unfolding in writing and in action and with some guidance to move us forward together to create a world of service and creativity and honoring, we've created this Reimagine Growth Journey platform for you to check out, and we'd love you to try that. You're going to get an email after this where you're a special group. No one knows about this yet, but you're going to get special access to this thing that is private for now, and we'd love your feedback, like I'm saying. Inside, you'll find a space for reflection, for creativity, and for connection. And also you'll have access to this pathway that we've built that is a set of prompts that you can explore that walks through some of the greatest thinkers and creators of in our history, poets and philosophers, and guides us on an opportunity to share our own stories in our own ways. And we help to connect with artists and poets and musicians to help create pathways through all of our own arts to help other people explore their pain, but also ultimately transmute or channel it into a new form. I just found this quote from MLK that I hadn't seen before about this term creative altruism. and the power of creative altruism. And I feel like those two words together are really what this space is about. Tapping into our own creativity, but doing it with an altruistic mind, and how we respond to the pain of the world. So join us on that mission. And you'll get an email about it in a second. I'm going to turn it over to Andy now for a little announcement about Room for Grief.
Thank you. And before I do that, I just want to encourage everyone to fill out a survey that Nicole is going to paste in the chat. And Jarrett, if you wouldn't mind, we'd love to hear some more beautiful music from you. While I'm speaking, I'll also encourage all of you to fill out the chat while everything is fresh in your mind. We want to hear from you. We want to know what to improve, what worked well for you, what didn't. This helps us shape our programming as we go forward. Now, a bit about Room for Grief on November 20th. This is a monthly peer-led drop-in group that meets on Thursdays. We leverage creativity and prompts to foster conversation and pathways for those seeking to process and navigate all kinds of loss. This month on November 20th, we'll have Grief Guide and Reimagine collaborator Nina Rodriguez, and she'll be facilitating. Thank you, Jarrett. And apropos of bees, I don't know if anyone noticed on my sweater, on November 19th, our next session of Wisdom of the Hive is hosted by Michelle Cassandra Johnson. We'll be focusing on bees as spiritual guides, doulas, and time travelers. Leading a conversation with some individuals who work at the edge of birth, death, spaces in between. I hope you register for that. And another event that's coming up on December 3rd, our capstone event for the year. Well, this year in grief, next year in hope. We're gathering so all of you can reflect on what we've been grieving this year, both personally and collectively, and to name what we're yearning and dreaming about in the interim. Join us for that. The next slide, Brad, I've featured all of our speakers for this event on December 3rd. Some amazing folks. I hope you'll register for that. There's a link in the chat that will paste that get more information about these events. Also, opportunities to collaborate with Reimagine programming. That's about it.
Thanks, Andy. Jarrett, I wonder if I can get your attention back here for 1 sec. Only because I want to read you something that I drafted that was inspired by you and Sarah and Kai and James as just some gratitude for what you shared, and I think something that was I was reflecting and trying my own hand at a brief poem while I was listening to your exquisite words. And it was about finding the right words, which I feel like you talked about and you all have done. And what is it like to find those words, whether it's poetry, whether it's music, whether it's an act of service, an act of kindness? What does that mean to find the right words? And Kai, you really spoke about this, directly. But the poem, these are called 15s, 5 lines, 3 syllables each. James Cruz, take notes. This is like a deep form of poetry that works for me every time. But it's not that sophisticated. Finding the right words. When we do, it feels soft. Tears flow down, hit the ground, seeds abound. So thank you to the 4 of you, honestly, for planting seeds for us and for helping us all find the right words this evening. And then I want to thank everybody in this community for showing up. We've hosted now more than 4,500 spaces that are free and accessible. for people to participate in conversations like this, and we need your help. Your help is what makes this all possible. Your donations, your showing up, your stories, your voice, you telling other people about this, because really everyone is in some form of grief or loss that we're all facing, and we all have to respond. So thanks to you for being here. Thanks to Andy and Nicole, Reimagine's beautiful staff, for staying up late in Spain today for us and in New York City. Thank you every month, sad but glad, to mourn, grieve, grow, and love together. So yeah, please check out a link to donate if you haven't had a chance or feel inclined, and we really look forward to seeing you next time. How about this? We're going to say something all out loud together. I'm going to ask our four leaders today, maybe what is one synonym for love? Just one word from each of you as we close today that you're feeling in your hearts. One kind of, it could be a phrase, but a synonym for love that you're feeling right now. Kai.
Grace.
James.
He has left.
Perfect. Silence. That is a beautiful, and thanks to everyone for staying so long. Okay, Jarrett and Sarah.
Compassion.
Gratitude.
All right, and with that, we're going to let everyone speak out loud. Now, let's, on the count of three, let's unmute ourselves, and out loud, we don't even need to say the synonym for it. Those were beautiful, and thank you again so much. If you haven't already shared gratitude, by the way, in the chat for Jarrett and Sarah, please do so. You know, you brought so much to this experience. I just want to make sure that the beauty of your songs and words are that gratitude is reflected back at you, and everybody here for being here. So, but what we're going to do is, yes, we're going to take that word, instead of the synonym, let's just go with the real deal, love. And on the count of three, we can unmute and all just share the word ad nauseum, love, 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 as many times you can do it melodically too. And it's the one thing besides Sarah's voice on Zoom that sounds good. So on the count of three. All right, 3, 2, let's hear the love. Love.
Love.
Love, 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 love. Love, 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 love. Love, 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 love.
Ooh, pretty.
All right, that's it. We did it.
Hey.
All right, love to you all. And that harmony you made us do, Sarah, by just letting us sing out loud the same way, and then all the ways you sang against it, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm sounding great right now. That was so delightful. All right, we look forward to being in touch with you. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.